Hello and welcome to today's webinar from IOSH magazine in partnership with Notify Technology. I'm Kelly Williams and I'll be hosting today's event. Today we will be looking at artificial intelligence and how it will transform the safety role. Whether it's enhancing decision making and uncovering insights or just taking care of repetitive tasks, AI can be a superpower to help you save time, drive compliance and get ahead of risk. To make use of this potential, you'll need a new skill set and a different mindset. You'll need to learn new tools that will change how you and your team operate and support your organisation. This webinar will explore these skills and opportunities practically, clearly, and with real-world examples. I'm delighted to welcome today's speakers, Notify's CTO and co-founder, Andy Dumbrell, and Protex AI's VP for Commercial, Jacques de Hayes. During this session, you are welcome to submit questions using the chat box function, which you should see on the screen now. At the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session where I'll put your questions to our panel and they'll try to answer as many as they can. So we're going to kick off today's session with a poll question. So that should be appearing on your screens now. How often are you using large language models, such as ChatGPT, for example, to get insight from your health and safety data? So that might be to analyze your data or recommend some training or suggest some hazards, that kind of thing. So how often are you using models such as ChatGPT? Is it daily? Is it weekly, monthly, or are you not using it at all? It'd be a really, really good insight into where you are on your AI journey if you could answer this poll question. And I'll just give you a few seconds to answer that poll question and we'll gather the results. And then I will bring Jacques and Andy in. So if you could just answer that poll question, how often are you using large language models such as ChatGPT? And I am just going to go into the polls now and grab those results. If you just bear with me 1 second. There we go. Okay. So the answers are in. Daily, we've got 14%. Weekly, 20%, monthly, 17%, and not at all, interestingly, is half of our audience today at 50%. So I'll bring Andy and Jacques into the conversation now. Do you find those results surprising?
No, I think it aligns with what I'm hearing across the market. I mean, it seems like software developers are leading the way when it comes to Gen AI and utilising that as part of your job. We're starting to see an uptick across other sectors as well, where people are starting to test out and try out things like ChatGPT to see if they become more efficient with that, help it to get them to do their jobs and so on. So it is starting to gradually go up, but I'm not surprised by those stats.
Thanks, Andy. How about you, Jacques?
Yeah, likewise, it echoes Andy's sentiment. I think it was, it was only sort of 2 years ago that I stood up in front of an audience and gave a similar sort of talk. And the answers to it at that stage would have been like 0%. People were sort of asking, what is AI in the first place? So I think that the fact that we've even got sort of 50% of the audience, saying that it's going to be impactful in their work, I think is already testament to how far things have come in the last 2 years.
Excellent. Okay, so let's crack on with, we're going to have a bit of a panel discussion first, if that's all right. So we've got a few questions to put to the two of you. So how will AI augment the role of safety leaders, Andy?
Well, it's everywhere today, and sometimes it can feel like too much because you're hearing about it in the news, on social media and so on. And there's so many tools and choices out there and things are moving really quickly. So I can understand from a safety leader's perspective, they might be questioning themselves, what does this actually mean for me? Where do I start? Where are the real opportunities? And for me, it's not just some cool, shiny tech. It does have the potential to genuinely protect people better. And AI is a very broad spectrum of things. So when I'm talking about it today, I'm going to focus on generative AI or Gen AI. the kind of tech you see from tools like ChatGPT. And what's amazing is how fast it's evolving. Big tech companies are investing billions into this stuff. So it's making it available for people like us, everyday people, through tools like ChatGPT and other tools as well. And it's not a far off thing. It's here today. It's starting to make a difference today. So jumping to the punchline for the title of the webinar, I don't think AI is coming after people's jobs. I see the technology as a powerful partner, ready to amplify what you do, serve you, and empower you. Honestly, the bigger risk for me isn't AI itself, but holding back. The people that adopt it, that lean into it, I think those are the ones that will stand out. They will lead the way and they'll set the new standards. So instead of seeing AI as a threat, see it as an opportunity. Think of it like collaboration and reframe it as a genuine co-pilot. AI itself can act as a virtual colleague. It can help you brainstorm ideas, such as identifying risks and hazards when you're doing a risk assessment. You can also use it as a sounding board, offering feedback and ideas. So you can get it to analyze your thoughts, your draft ideas, and give you useful, constructive feedback. For example, how do I make this safety strategy better, more impactful, stronger? And it's also there to help you with your blind spots. So sometimes when you've got like an ocean of data in front of you, you can use AI to sift through that data and pull out the key insights, give you actionable insights that you can then take forward and make workplaces safer. So for me, it's starting off small, it's experimenting and starting to see really where AI can make a difference within your business, within your environment.
Thank you. I think our audience will be really encouraged by what you've just said. And what do you think, Jax?
Yeah, I think and Andy's touched on quite a few of those items already. I think, you know, at Protex, when we talk about the key areas that we think AI will have an impact on, we think of three key areas from a safety perspective. The first is the ability to identify risk in the first place. The second is the ability to analyze that risk and those data points quickly to get actionable insights. And then the third is to actually take action to mitigate that risk. And I think across all three of those different pillars, we're already seeing some really, really interesting ways in which AI can augment the role of a safety leader. We'll touch on, you know, I'm sure Andy and I will touch on some very specific examples as we go through the rest of this webinar. But, you know, things like the ability to use AI to interpret video recordings to identify risk on the identify side of things. On the analysis side of things, you can take enormous amounts of data that would have previously taken a data analyst 3 months to work through and get insights in minutes. And then on the action side of things, you can really start to get sort of like corrective actions based on recommended corrective actions based on best practice, based on your documentation and policies. You can start to automate corrective actions. So this is where we're at today. And then I think if you think about where we're going to be, you know, 3, 4, 5 years in the future, there's some pretty mind-blowing stuff that will soon be possible.
Absolutely. Okay, so how do you think safety leaders can upskill to work effectively alongside AI technologies, Jax?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to start small. I think like getting effective use out of AI doesn't need to require like a huge project and a huge piece of change management. And I think just you know, leaning into whether it's like ChatGPT or some of the other LLMs and just finding ways to use that in your day-to-day and encouraging your teams to do so as well will quickly lead to this like snowball effect of people finding new and more innovative and sort of like more complex ways of implementing AI. The second thing is that I think there are some really great success stories coming from industry at the moment. And so I think, you know, look at what some of the others are doing in the space and where they're getting their best results and just jump on their coattails. You know, I fully appreciate that there's a lot of noise around AI. There are a lot of implementations that don't deliver. And that can make it a little bit sort of, it can lose trust a little bit. But I think we're now starting to really see some signal from the noise and see where the most interesting applications are. So yeah, happy to chat through that more, but that would be my initial thoughts.
Excellent. How about you, Andy?
Honestly, I think it starts with mindset for me. So you've got to have that growth mindset and be open to the tech, not intimidated by it. And see AI as another set of tools in your safety toolkit. And like any tool, it's got strengths, it's got weaknesses. And like any tool, as Jax was saying, you've got to invest time into it to figure it out, understand its quirks, how to use it best, and so on. One of the things for me is it's moving quickly as well. It's an evolving journey, but it's moving fast. So it's not a one-stop thing. You've got to continually develop your skills to stay current. And things like webinars like this, short courses, or maybe even forming a peer group to share learnings together and so on, can help with those knowledge checkpoints. Beyond that, it's hands-on experience, and you don't have to boil the ocean straight away. Like Jack said, start small, experiment, try using the AI to do different things. So think of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis and where you could save some time. It might be drafting a safety bulletin, or summarizing a long incident, or getting help with a risk assessment. Try using tools like ChatGPT, see what happens, measure it, and adapt to try and get it better. The more practical use you build in, the more confident you get yourself, and crucially, the tools will start working for you. And as part of that, especially when it comes to things like ChatGPT, you've got to learn what they call prompt literacy. It sounds a lot more technical than it is. It's really all about being very clear and specific with your questions or your instructions when you're talking to the tools, so you can get the answers that you want. So some people might just say, generate a report on X, Y, and Z. And if you be a bit more specific, like generate a concise safety performance report for the executive team using professional but urgent tone, highlighting these 3 key risk areas and propose mitigations, you're giving the LLM a bit more context to what you're looking for, the audience that you're targeting, and so on. So the quality of what you get back will be much better. And it's that trial and error that'll get you there. And stay open-minded as well, because AI doesn't always get things right. Sometimes it can be brilliant, and sometimes it can be very frustrating. So you have to be patient when it goes off the rails a bit. But equally, at the same time, sometimes you'll get different answers that are valid but totally unexpected. So stay open-minded, because I'm learning quite lots of new things about the topics I'm challenging myself with AI. And I think that's the same for health and safety.
And I think also, if you, like you said about start small, if you get it to generate those reports or identify those hazards, do the smaller things first. Actually, ultimately, if you can automate that side of things, it frees up your time to think about the bigger things and the processes and systems you can put in place using AI sort of further down the line as well. So it's kind of a win-win, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to have another poll question now. We'd like to know what your current challenges with AI are. You should see a poll question pop up on your screen, so please do answer it to give us a bit more insight into, we know that over half our audience today are actively using AI regularly, so it'd be really good to know what are the current challenges you have that Andy sort of alluded to there. So the options are accessing the data, getting approval from IT, getting budget for paid licenses for machine learning, lack of understanding of value, return on investment, quality completeness of underlying data, lack of training, or not enough time, which I was speaking about. So it's too labor intensive. So if you could select the current challenges that you're having with AI, that would be great. It's just that we can get a bit of more of an idea on what you're struggling with at the moment, and hopefully we'll have some answers for you. So I'm just going to go into the poll results now and grab those answers. Okay, so accessing the data, we've got 4.5%. Getting approval from IT, we have got 14.4%, so about 14%. Getting budget for paid licenses at 8%, lack of understanding of value, 15%, quality and completeness of underlying data, just over 20%. And the majority is lack of training, actually, at 33%. And not enough time is 4%. So quite a mixed bag there. What do you guys think about those results?
Yeah, again, not a surprise. I think no matter what sector you're in, there seems to be a new AI tool coming out every single day. So it can be quite daunting to think about what should I specialize in, which tool should I pick, which one's going to make the difference, or which set of tools. And then you've got to invest time into them to understand how they work and so on. So it's not surprising. I think the bit around time is it's that upfront time investment that'll give you time back down the line. And what will get you there quicker as well, just going back to what we talked about earlier, is sessions like this and speaking to colleagues and understanding, hearing about people's experiences and their learning curve, so you can try and maybe bypass some of the failures that other people have experienced to get you the next step forward. If you keep doing that, you'll definitely find the right tools that will make a difference within your work life.
Great, thank you. And Jacques, with your clients, are you seeing similar challenges?
Yeah, I think so. And I wanted to use this question to also build on the last one, where I think 100% to put your foot forward and try and make the most of the opportunity with AI, like being data literate and spending time working with all of these tools. All of that stuff is important. That said, I think it's also it is the vendor's responsibility in this place, and it's the way that the market will operate, that we will create tools that are extremely easy and intuitive to use. Those are the tools that will get adoption. And so that, a large proportion of the audience saying that the training is the blocker, well, I think that's also on the vendors to create tools that are extremely easy to use and adopt.
Really good point there. Okay, let's move on to another discussion point. How do you think large language models and predictive analytics can really empower safety leaders, Andy?
Well, I'll start off with a brief description. So large language models, or LLMs, are the power behind things like ChatGPT and other Gen AI stuff that you hear about. And understand the basics is useful. So we can forget the super technical definitions. Just think of them as incredibly sophisticated pattern matching systems. And they've been trained on unimaginable amounts of text and data, huge chunks of the internet, books, articles, and so on. And they learn to predict what words are likely to come next in any given sequence. So that simple ability allows them to seemingly understand context, generate text that sounds remarkably human, and process really complex, unstructured information like incident reports, safety observations, risk assessments, witness statements, and so on. So they can basically read, understand, write text at a near human level. And this unlocks a great deal of potential for the safety world. So one of the first areas that's starting to take off is high quality conversational support. And again, it's that basic thing of having a conversation or a chat with the likes of ChatGPT in a natural language to help you out with things. So you can ask it, what are the key steps for doing root cause analysis using 5 whys, but make sure I consider human factors. And it'll give you coherent, knowledgeable answers almost instantly. It's like having an expert on tap. You can take it to the next level and give it context through documentation, so they can intelligently process documents and build that into the conversation. And that's where it gets really interesting, because you can share data with it and have conversations about that data. So it could be, you give it an incident, including photos and so on, and ask it to identify what the root causes were. Were there any near misses that have been identified that led up to this incident? And let the technology find the answers for you. Going beyond that, I think the next real evolution for me is automated safety workflows. So imagine building specific virtual agents like little AI workers that operate autonomously for you. With this, you define their job, you give them a specific task, access to data, maybe some tools, and then you let them run. And you can have single agents, like you can imagine a situation where you want a radar assessment agent that automatically scans every single accident report, near miss, injury that comes through your system and predicts if it's likely to be radar reportable. If it is, it can raise that alert straight away so people become aware sooner rather than later and they can take action. Or you can take that a step further and think about having multi-agent systems. So picture a whole crew of specialized EHS data processing agents working together as a team 24 hours a day. You'll have one agent that categorizes all income and safety data, another agent that identifies the key insights, maybe a third that examines emerging trends around risk, and a final one that pulls that all together in an executive summary dashboard for you. And you have this running behind the scenes, and then you step in as the human with your knowledge and you drive the actions forward. You take the insights and you do something with them on the back of the work that they have done. And remember, it doesn't replace your expertise, it simply amplifies it.
It sounds really exciting, doesn't it, Jacques?
Yeah, I think Andy's covered a lot of the ground there. I think I have a specific example coming up of what an output of a sort of some predictive analytics could look like. So I'll touch on it in a bit more depth there. But I think on the predictive analytics side specifically, how can that empower safety leaders? I think, think of it as just like, imagine having unlimited data and analyst resources at your fingertips. Right now, these models, they're not going to have all of the context that a human might have. But in terms of just like the raw ability to process huge amounts of data and give you predictive insights, it's incredibly powerful. So if you've been budget constrained and you've been asking for more support from your data analytics team, well, here you go. You now have unlimited resource. On the large language model side of things, I think Andy touched on a lot here, but I think one interesting thing to point out is that there are large language models, but then there are also things called vision language models, which do the same thing that Andy was talking about with text, but with things like video information. So, we can now start to really understand what's going on in video and use that to capture data and get predictive insights from other forms of data like video and audio, etc.
That leads me really nicely into my next question. How can safety leaders influence their leadership teams to drive this digital transformation? Jacques, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, this is probably no surprise to most people on this call, but I think just like what we see is when we go up in conversations with senior leadership about a large scale rollout that's going to cost a bunch of money, it typically always comes back to what is going to be the bottom line impact, and or how does this mitigate risk for us? So being able to speak the language of ROI and bottom line impact, and sort of quantify from a risk reduction perspective what this means. What does it mean if you can reduce the potential risk of a fatality by 75%? So I think, really understanding their language and communicating their language. There's other stuff which is probably top of mind for some of you, like privacy. Is that going to be a big blocker? IT security, is that going to be a big blocker? I think, yes, those are things which are 100% come up in the process. But any vendor that works in the enterprise space has resolved those challenges with clients time and time again. So those are all very resolvable. And generally speaking, when we work with clients, those are not things which block a project from going ahead.
And the same for you, I guess, Andy, at Notify. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Thanks. I think Jacques has covered most of it. It's framing AI initiatives as a strategic business opportunity, not just a safety thing. And as Jacques said, talk the language that your execs will respond to, cost reduction and so on. But also take evidence. And again, another point that building on from earlier on, you can use vendors like Protex and Notify to help bring that evidence forward. So you can demonstrate how this stuff can have an impact and get support from your partners that you're bringing on board. You need to make it clear as well that AI enhanced safety isn't a nice to have anymore. It's fast becoming industry standard. So it's crucial to bring this stuff into play, to stay competitive, to demonstrate that you're following best practice. And you can also frame this as a performance multiplier for the whole business as well, not just for safety. So for me, it's a necessary evolution for how modern businesses operate safely and efficiently. And I guess the other side as well is, I think you've got the opportunity to be the digital change agent within your organization, to champion it, to guide the cultural shift that'll be required. Remember, start small, maybe get a pilot up and running within one site or for one specific process, and demonstrate how that's made a difference, publicize it, celebrate the successes, because then you'll start getting support and confidence within the technology. And definitely tackle the people side of things head on, be upfront about that. Reassure people about AI's reliability, the ethics around it, the real impact on jobs, and emphasize it's about a human-centered approach. Humans are always in the loop, always overseeing. It's about collaboration, not replacement. And that way you can build trust and transparency into the process and take people with you.
Brilliant. Some really, really good advice there. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for that. We've sort of set the scene on AI and how it can help our audience in their roles, but let's kind of see it in action. Andy, I'm going to hand over to you, and I'll come back at the end for the Q&As.
Thank you. I'm sharing my screen now. Okay, so I'm going to give a demonstration, but I'll start off by talking about the strategy that we've got for AI within Notify technology. So our plan here is to embed generative AI across our products and make features and value available to our customers. And it's going to be across 3 key pillars that you see here. Assist is around assistive capability. So being able to give discrete features that will help you get your job done quicker, get to the answer faster, and save you time. Sense is around using technology to automatically detect risk and incidents through partnerships with the likes of Protex. And I'm sure Jax will talk about this in more detail and gives his demonstration. But the whole idea here is that we can automatically identify those risks and bring them into the picture. And then finally, predict is around crunching through your data to predict future outcomes, identify risks and potential areas for incidents in the future, so you can be aware of them and address them before they happen. Now, our current focus is around assist. So I'll give you a demonstration of some of the stuff we're building right now. This is a prototype, but I've got my development team behind the scenes busy developing this right now. And it's within our incident management system, which allows customers to report near misses, accidents, and so on. So on screen here is a real example incident. It's been reported as a serious near miss where some maintenance was taking place on some equipment and a hose started spraying chemicals everywhere. Nobody was hurt, but it caused some downtime. Now, the first thing we're doing is we're bringing in the ability to generate content to help people create content that might need as part of the day-to-day job. So just click on the incident analysis button here. You can see there's 6 different sections here that we can use. So what this will do is it'll take into context the incident that you're looking at right now, and it'll help you generate content that you can edit and then use as part of your day-to-day work. So for example, if you needed to create a summary, click the button here and it'll create a summary for you. We configure the system so that it has a tailored approach to your business, so it'll prioritize the information you want in summaries and so on. So you get something that matches your priorities, your language. And then once you've got that, you can copy it and paste that into an email. You could edit the information if you want to tweak it. So you can use that and hopefully save time by using features like this. So if I jump down a bit, if you've had a major accident, quite often you'll have to dispatch a safety briefing across the business. So a similar sort of principle, get the technology to do that for you. It will evaluate the incident, give you a summary, explain why this matters, key risks to watch for, and so on. Giving you all the information, hopefully you need for that safety briefing. But remember, you can go back and tweak that information before you send it across your business. If you've got to then report up to your executive team, you can generate a summary for that team, and it's the tone and language that's used and the information that is shared is now targeted at that audience. So it's shifting what it's doing. If you need some help with understanding some key insights in the accidents, this might be part of the early stage investigation. You can get the AI to evaluate the data that's here, any pictures and so on. It'll identify what activity was being involved at the time. It'll identify your contributing factors. It'll conduct root cause analysis, give you a causal chain for those root causes. And it'll recommend actions that you can take to mitigate risks in the future. So all of this is intended to be a time saver. So when you're doing those types of tasks, you can start using technology to help you get to that answer quicker. Now, the second area, and this is more experimentation at the stage, is what you've seen so far is a bit of a closed solution. You can click a button, it'll generate content that you can then use for your own purpose. What if you've got a question about the data, or you want something different? So we're going to build in the ability to chat and have a conversation with the AI about your data. So you might say to it, if you've just come to the instance for the first time, summarize in 30 words what happened. Was anyone hurt? You could talk into the technology, you don't have to type. You can see straight away, you get a brief description, and you know nobody was hurt. And then if you wanted an email, if you had to report back to your boss, for example, you could ask the technology to prepare that for you. So prepare an email for my boss, Liz. Use a casual but professional tone, making her aware and setting out next steps. And you can see it's given you an email subject and an email that you can then tailor and go and use. So again, it's discrete little tasks you might perform as part of your day-to-day life, and that's where we want to drop in AI to hopefully make your lives a bit easier. It would be great to get your feedback through chat on what you've seen, what you think works well, so the good, the bad, and the things we could do better. So please do share your feedback. And that's it from me. I'm now going to hand over to Jax for his demonstration.
Super. Thanks, Andy. All right, lovely. I'm just going to share screen. Super. So what I'll talk through here is I'll give a very quick bit of context on what Protex does, but then I'll walk you through an example of how a client has actually used some of the AI within Protex to deliver end impact. So very high level, what Protex does is we take your CCTV cameras, the existing ones on site, and we use our artificial intelligence to analyze those feeds to identify safety risks. So what do those risks look like? So those are things like, let's say, for instance, forklifts getting too close to each other, things like people too close to forklifts, people going over zones that they shouldn't be, speeding, PPE non-compliance, behavioral risk like using mobile phones. So there are around 50 odd risks that we can detect. Very high level, the process is pretty simple. We connect a computer to your CCTV network. Once that is connected, you then configure the system to detect risk, or we can do this for you. And the way that works is I'll show you a second in the actual platform, but the system can detect different objects. So that's things like vehicles, people, hard hats, and then measures. Measures are the ways in which those objects interact with their environment. So by combining these elements together, you can start to tell the system what risks you're trying to detect. And then the third part is analyzing that risk. So you now have all of this data. You have all of this real-time data on the near misses you're seeing on site. You've got the bottom half of Heinrich's triangle is finally complete. But now you need to analyze that data. And so we make it very easy to analyze all of that risk, to identify key areas to focus on. And then finally, the last step in the process is make it very easy to act on that risk, whether that's assigning corrective actions, putting in place dashboards on site outside of a shift room so that you can nudge behavior. There's all sorts of things that you can do to to close the loop and action that data. And we're doing this with mostly large enterprise clients globally. I know most folks here will be in Europe. I know there are sort of a lot of privacy concerns when we talk to folks in Europe. As I mentioned, these are all things that the system is designed around. It's a privacy-first system. Personally identifiable information is anonymized, so it works well with all sort of GDPR compliance, etc. So let me walk through an example of how a client actually used Protex AI to get a 53% reduction in safety events in a 58-day period. So this is a large industrial resin manufacturer. So what you're seeing here is first of all, this, as I mentioned, the first part is detecting the risk. This is what you're seeing here is an overview of all of the risks that the system can detect. And I've just highlighted for your context the ones that this client was focused on. So most of their worker comp costs were coming from ergonomics. So we detected overreaching, poor trunk posture. The system can also put in place Reba ruler scoring. So we did that as well. They have some hazardous materials, which if left out too long, are a combustion risk. So we detected that for them. And then there was some vehicle control as well, vehicle near misses, vehicle to vehicle near misses, vehicle to people near misses, etc. Now, what I'm going to do is show you in the system how I mentioned the rule configuration process earlier. I'll show you how it actually works. So what you'll see is in the Protex system, I've gone to rules, and if I go to create a rule, you'll see all of those risks that I just mentioned are all here out of the box. So you can detect a risk out of the box. Or alternatively, just for illustrative purposes, I'm going to do create a blank rule. And so what you'll see here is on this left-hand side are some of the objects that the system can detect. And then there are the measures. So as an example, if you wanted to understand when a person in a zone, I'll put that up there, a person in a zone gets too close distance to a forklift. And then just combine those elements together. There we go. I'll zoom out a little bit. Combine those elements together. You can configure them. So I want to know when someone is within 2 feet of a forklift, and the vehicle, I'll specify a forklift. And finally, just select the cameras that I want to do this on, confirm selection. And there we go. You now have, as soon as you save and publish, you have a 24/7 audit for a person going within 2 feet of a forklift in that zone. If you want to add in speed of the vehicle, you can do that as well. So it becomes this really configurable system. So hopefully that gives you a sense for how, for your specific risks on site, you can take AI like this to start to interpret that unstructured data that you're getting from those video feeds and break it down into really structured insights on your risks on site. And then you can also decide what to do with that information. Do you want to, obviously it'll be stored in Protex, but do you want to, immediate notifications via email, Teams, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how the detection works. Then the next step is the insights. So all of that data then is aggregated so you can start to analyze that data. Now for this specific client, as I mentioned, they were focused on a lot of ergonomics risks. So they were really using the Reba ruler scoring breakdown. So you can see here on this right-hand side, you're starting to get insights, and you can cut this by different shifts, by different zones, etc. But insights into specific parts of the body where there are the greatest risks at certain times of day on certain shifts. Another neat way of getting insights from the data is you can look at things like path mapping. So here what you're seeing is you're seeing the interaction. You're seeing the green lines are essentially forklift traffic, and the orange lines are pedestrian traffic. And so for this specific client, you can see that there was a lot of crossover in that traffic in this forklift lane. There isn't really any signage in place. There isn't a pedestrian crossing area. And actually, there was a lot of traffic was crossing over to these bins over here. And so the client just relocated the bins, put in place some signage, and made sure that there weren't any blind areas behind these pillars. But my favorite thing that this client did in terms of the analysis part was used our predictive analytics. So imagine that you now have all of your own data from all of your own incident reports, etc., and you've got all of this near-miss data, the bottom half of Heinrich's triangle coming from Protex. You can now analyze all of that data at the click of your fingers using AI. And so this is this isn't their actual report. This is a sort of demo report because we obviously can't show their data. But here you're getting this is a 14-page report into predictive risks on site and the corrective actions that the client could take. So I'll touch on some really, some of my favorite parts of this is it started by giving the client insight into the health of their data. Where do they have good reporting culture or not? And so you can start to see there's analysis by sites of where there is a strong reporting culture or not based on the discrepancy between what Protex is capturing and the site is capturing. Then after that, there's risk factor analysis. So this is cutting the data by shift, by risk type, by locations. Where are the greatest risks on site? And then my favorite part is the predictive analysis. Starting to get into where should the client focus their attention in order to mitigate risk on site. All of these sites here, 2.3 times more likely to experience incidents than the average. Powered industrial vehicles increase incident probability by 37%. And these are insights generated in moments rather than taking a data analyst 3-4 months. And then finally, based on their own policies and procedures, recommended corrective actions. So those are the insights that the client got. And off the back of those insights, they were then able to put in place corrective actions. And so the way that they used the Protex AI here is simple things: review data trends with their team during daily stand-ups. So, hey, do we have fewer near misses yesterday than we did today? If so, great, we're doing something right. Use videos as game tape. You can tell we work with American clients, game tape. So use videos as a much richer way. When you have a 10-second clip of a risk, that's a much richer way of showing people that risk and mitigating that behavior in future. And obviously this is all anonymized. Third thing, nudge behavior using workplace dashboards and compliance scores. So you can see here a dashboard showing live performance on near misses. And then finally, this is one of my favorite, most impactful things, using data to run shift-based competitions. So providing incentives, teams with the highest compliance scores get some sort of small bonus. Just a really powerful way of reinforcing positive behavior. And then the impact of that, as I mentioned, was a 53% reduction in 58 days. This is actually, our average is a 64% reduction. So we've chosen a conservative example here. But yeah, it's a pretty powerful way of using artificial intelligence. Super, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jax. Thank you, Andy. Thanks for the really interesting discussion at the top of this webinar and for showing us those systems. It's really interesting to see them working in action and what our audience can take from them. As promised, we're going to move on to a Q&A session for the last 15 minutes of this webinar today. We've had loads of questions come in, which is fabulous. There's lots of engagement from our audience today. So we are going to kick off with, just bear with me and I'll get your questions open. Here we go. Okay, so the first one, this one's for you, Andy. How would Notify AI assist in accident and incident finding, underlying root causes? sometimes these findings can be very exhaustive, thorough, and require human resource, which you both touched on. But this viewer doesn't understand how Notify can fulfill that visual element of reporting. AI can suggest scenarios for lunch and learn, but passive reporting require exactly what happened to the bone. So how would it work, this critical task aspects?
I think AI can be dropped in throughout the process. So you could start off trying to increase engagement and quality of data when you're capturing the incident. So we hear about different barriers to getting good quality data and high volumes of reports. And one area that we're looking at is conversational reporting. So rather than having to fill in a form and remember jargon and so on, have a conversation with the software, talking to a wearable or whatever it might be if you spotted a hazard, and use that conversation so the AI can pull out the key bits of information, make sure it's understood the report correctly, and transcribe that into a high quality incident report. Even if you've got a multi-language, multicultural environment, the person can speak their native language and that can be transcribed to English or whatever. So at the start, you can increase engagement, but also quality of data by dropping AI in there. And then throughout the process, it could be, as I touched on earlier, being your sounding board. So if you're doing your investigation and you've identified some sort of compliance issue and you want a high quality action, well, get the AI to help word that for you, give you the ideas of the things you can put in place to mitigate that, but communicate in a way that's clear and impactful. Also, and give you ideas on what reasonable timescales might be and so on. And beyond that, more broadly speaking, it could be used proactively or retrospectively to work through your data. So if you've had a major accident and you want to understand what was missed leading up to that, there might have been what would have been seen as minor incidents being reported through the history of that leading up to that incident, but together there's something more powerful. You can get AI to crunch through that data and really put the spotlight on those incidents and help you understand how they've led to that incident. So it can be used throughout the whole process. It's not perfect, it won't get everything right, and it won't solve all problems. You still need a human in the loop, but it will hopefully get you to the answer quicker.
Excellent, thank you. And Jacques, what's your experience with the potential cultural impact with the workforce following the introduction of an AI-based safety system?
Yeah, I think so. The first thing is that there are a number of, we build in a lot of guardrails into the product to make sure that it is not misused. That said, it still requires, we are providing the data, and it still requires the company to use that data in a way which aligns with its policies and procedure and cultural guidelines. As long as it's doing that, I think it just reinforces the culture. If it's not doing that, then sure, it can be a detractor. But as long as you have a clear sense of how you want to use that data and you have a clear sense of the culture that you're trying to reinforce, then I don't think it's misaligned in any way whatsoever.
Okay, so Jacques, again, following on from that, have you trialed this on a live construction site? How do you work with, you obviously mentioned this, GDPR and CCTV overspill to public areas, for example?
Yes, we have worked on live construction sites. Construction has challenges, not necessarily to do with the spillovers to the public areas, but essentially on a construction site, two things happen. One is because it's an outdoor environment, you can have things that interfere with the quality of the camera feed, dust on the lenses, lots and lots of dust on the lenses, or most weather is absolutely fine, but if you've got sort of snow, then that can have an impact as well. And then from a sort of GDPR perspective and spillover into public spaces, quite candidly, that is not something we have encountered yet. So I'm not sure I can give a very sort of detailed response to that.
Okay, fair enough. Again, for you, Jacques, if that's okay, what are the security measures in place for sharing this CCTV? This viewer works at a naval base and he predicts a significant amount of pushback from security on this issue.
Yeah, 100%. So I think, generally speaking, what most large enterprise, highly secure, highly privacy conscious companies will be looking for is they will be looking for the processing to happen on premise. So the actual AI risk detection is not happening in the cloud, it's happening on premise. What that means is that you're not streaming that footage offsite. So that's the way our system is architected. Is that's why we, if you remember the slide where I said connect the cameras, that's why we connect the computer directly to your CCTV network, so that everything is happening on premise on your site. That'll be really important for your IT teams. From a privacy perspective, what'll be really important to them is that the information is anonymized and that there are sort of permission controls around it. Those are key things from a GDPR perspective. So you can blur faces, you can blur entire bodies, you can put like a filter so you can't even see sort of, you know, the color of someone's boots, that kind of thing. So that stuff's all very important. That said, a naval base, we were in talks with the US Army, but a naval base is going to be a pretty high bar, and I imagine that, you know, I can understand why they would be pushed back on a naval base. We work with clients where the background environment is, there is sensitive information in the back of the CCTV footage. Even there, you can blur the background environment. But yeah, I agree, a naval base, I suspect, will probably be a bridge too far.
Okay, thank you. Andy, is the Notify technology able to suggest mitigations to lower the risk of the incident happening again? And would you need to put the risk assessment into the system as well?
Yes, it is. And the more context you can give it through data like the risk assessment, the more context aware it becomes and the better the answer you'll get. But yes, it can give you mitigation strategies, specific actions, but also reasoning behind that as well to explain why it's suggesting this, you know, how it's, which parts of the data has it pulled out to say, well, we think the issue is this and this is how we can resolve it. And for me, that reasoning is really important, because to get trust into the technology and the answers and suggestions you're getting, if the AI can explain how we got there, it helps you understand that, and over time that builds trust.
Brilliant. And does the Notify analysis tool depend on the quality and detail in the incident report itself? This viewer often has issues with people not providing much detail or context to incident reports. Absolutely.
I mean, the better quality data you get up front, the more meaningful the conversation or the suggestions will be. So it's one of the reasons we want to tackle getting the data right at the start when the report's coming in, as part of the Safety Co-Pilot's initiative. Because if we can get that bit right, and it might be through the conversational stuff I touched on earlier, or other approaches, it means when it gets to, you know, the stage that the manager looks at it, with support from AI or not, it helps them get through the process of investigation and resolving the issues quicker. But yes, if you get very low quality data coming in, it's going to make that a challenge.
Okay. And Jax, if you share data or documents online for analysing by the LLM, how secure is that data? Can it be found by others at a later date? This viewer could do with some facts and reassurance around this.
Yeah, so I can speak specifically to Protex. In Protex, there's all sorts of permission controls that you can put in place. The data that you use and upload is visible only to you. It won't be resurfaced to anyone else. Any data that, you know, we capture on your behalf doesn't train the model. So you know, the models that we use are completely separate from your data. In terms of LLMs, you know, more publicly, if you're just going to like a chat GPT, this is not, you know, my area of expertise. My understanding is that if you are using an LLM that has been provided, you know, on a company plan via your company, then they will not be capturing, they will not use that data to train their own models. And again, there are permission controls in place, so that data will not be, any data or questions that you use or ask will not be visible to others.
Great. And Andy, do you feel it's best to invest in self-hosting or go with an off-the-shelf online option?
I'd suggest start off with off-the-shelf online, because you'll get to use the technology quicker. Get advice from your IT team to make it secure. It's simple. I mean, some of the tools are, depending on the technology you go for, some of them are secure as the setup. Other ones you've got to tailor the configuration, but it'll get you up and running quicker. And then once you come up with your strategy of how you want to deploy it, at that stage you can make a decision around whether you self-host or, as I say, use something that's off the shelf. Some sectors might have to self-host, though. Some are a lot more controlled over what they can put out into cloud systems and so on.
Yeah. Okay, so one for both of you. Assuming AI is used more and more, that occupational safety and health responsibility will be handled from a legal standpoint in the future. For example, how far away are we from someone standing up in court and claiming, but ChatGPT said it was reasonably practical or compliant to do X?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, for me, you still remain the duty holder.
Yeah.
You know, whether the AI's told you to do X, Y, or Z, it's still your responsibility to oversee, to make the decisions. So you're still accountable. AI is just a tool, remember. It's a powerful tool, but it's just a tool. If you don't evaluate what it's given you properly, if you just blindly follow the instructions and so on, then I don't think it'll work for you in court to say, well, ChatGPT told me to do this, put your hands up. It's your accountability. So,
Jax, anything to add?
No, I think Andy's covered it, and certainly from Protex's side, we try to go to great lengths to emphasize that the system is not perfect and does not replace human judgment.
Brilliant. A good point to remember. Okay, so Matt asks, AI, Copilot in his case, is not infallible. It can get things wrong, like referencing incorrect or out-of-date legislation. How do you keep aware and fact-check the AI?
So you can give it tools. So depending on whether you're using this through ChatGPT or through a vendor's tool like what I demonstrated earlier, you can give it tools and instructions to put safeguards around that. So, for example, if the conversation was around the latest guidelines and stuff, you'd ensure that your AI agent has access to the internet. You might actually point it at certain reference websites to be able to pull the data back and give you an up-to-date answer. I mean, there's technical techniques that you can do behind the scenes to help force the AI to use current information. And where it hasn't got access to that, you can instruct it not to make stuff up or to give an answer that it can't help. It won't get it right all the time. So going back to my earlier point, you still have to check its homework, but there are techniques you can put in place and tools you can make available to help improve that quality, especially for the stuff that's recently come out into the public domain.
Okay, we've got time for a couple more quick questions. Kurt asks, his feeling that ChatGPT or just AI generally will only encourage formulaic risk assessments rather than ensuring accurate risk assessments are completed. What are your thoughts?
I think it could do that. It's about how you then apply it. So when you start out with this technology, going back to experimenting and learning, you have to adapt it as well. So if it's built within a system, like our system, we'd want to configure it in a way where we instruct it to behave in a certain way, and we can make it aware of the policies, the language, and so on that our customers use, so it becomes more aligned with what they expect. The big tech companies are carrying on to develop this stuff and invest billions into it. So the models are only getting better. What you have today, just remember, it's going to be the worst version of what it is today. Tomorrow it's going to be much better, and so on. So this stuff's only going to improve over time. The experimentation we've done is shown that it can be really capable and powerful. And if it gets you 80%, 90% of the way there, I think that's a big win.
Absolutely. Okay, this is the last question for today. And it's probably an opportunity for a pitch from both of you. But Trevor asks, what's the best AI tool to use for health and safety in your experience? The golden question.
Can I say notify?
I expected you to.
Do you want to go first, Jax?
Protex aside, I think just starting with an off-the-shelf LLM, there's just a huge amount that you can do just with one of these tools off the shelf. So I would just start there, start small, and see what impact you can get.
Yeah, I think so. I think try two side by side. So we've said ChatGPT today because that seems to be the gold standard. So definitely use ChatGPT. but also try Claude by Anthropic. I often switch between the two because I have some great days of ChatGPT and some very frustrating moments. So I'll go across to Claude and get a much better answer. And you start figuring out what they're both good for. And then there's another stage. Now, once you get into ChatGPT, you can tell it to use different models or different techniques. You can say, well, I want deep research here. So going slightly back to one of the earlier questions, if you were doing something more strategic and you want to make sure that the answer you get's been thoroughly researched against up-to-date information, you can switch ChatGPT into research mode. It takes longer to do, but it sends off these virtual agents I talked about earlier to go off and research the internet, prepare a report. It'll ask you questions on the way so it can try and tailor the answer to what you want, and you get something back that's a lot more high quality for those kind of use cases versus just a normal conversation with the AI. And remember to try and improve how you talk to the AI as well. So you can get that prompt literacy levels up, be more specific and so on. You'll get better results coming out.
Excellent. I've been scribbling down the names of those. Thank you, Andy. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. This webinar will be available to watch on demand at ioshmagazine.com/webinars. Thanks again to Andy and Shax, and to our sponsor Notify, and to the viewers for joining us today. We look forward to welcoming you to another IOSH Magazine webinar very soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.